what is the self? You know, because you've got Descartes, I think, therefore I am. You've got, and then you've got somebody like James K. A. Smith, like you are what you love, which is a more Augustinian in his approach, where our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you, as Augustine says. Yeah. So how do you understand self? And I know that you are, you love the church. And so how does the church engage this stuff? And what do we do with it, you know?
Yeah, well, it's tough, because one of the things that I became very aware of as I was writing the book is how much of our understanding of ourselves, we tend to think of ourselves as a monologue. I am, my desires, I am. But actually, those desires are the result of a dialogue. I use an example with the kids in class. I'll say, you know, if I took your iPhone from you and said, it's okay, I'll give you back in 6 months' time, how would you feel? Well, they'd feel pretty ticked. That's the usual reaction. They wouldn't feel themselves. You know, their identity is very much wrapped up with the networks that they're able to get to through their iPhones. Well, that wouldn't have been the case even 30 years ago for me growing up. Never heard of an iPhone. No such thing existed. I didn't have those desires. I had desire, but it was shaped in different ways. My personhood was shaped in different ways. So one of the things I became acutely aware of in writing the book is the dialogical nature of selfhood. And so, for example, you know, the surge in transgender teens we've seen over the last couple of years, is that the result of the fact that for thousands of years there have been all these teenagers who are really transgender but terrified to say anything about it because society wouldn't accept them? Or is it actually the result of the fact that society has made this a way of belonging, a way of being somebody, a way of being special, a way of being yourself? Well, it's the latter. The real question for the problem for the church then is, if the self is the result of a dialogue with a community, the strongest community is going to win. The strongest community will shape the self. And that leads me to think that the church, we can't simply address this problem through correct doctrine. I'm an Orthodox Presbyterian man. Good doctrine is very important to me, but it's not in itself sufficient. There has to be a community aspect, because doctrine is received and shapes people within a community. And that's what I like. You know, I think James Smith is absolutely correct when he kind of points to the Enlightenment and says, you know, epistemology, it only gets you so far, but the most important things in life are things that epistemology doesn't deal with. The things that you love, or on the flip side, the things that you hate. There's that, dare I say it, there's that kind of romantic dimension. It is what you feel to some extent. It is your sentiments to some extent. And what the church has to do is work hard at shaping and cultivating those things, that our desire for the church and our desire for Christ and our desire to find our identity there is much stronger than our desire to find it anywhere else. And it will only be that strong through strong community. I think when to convert to Christianity from the LGBTQ community, I would imagine is as hard to convert from Islam or Judaism, because you're not simply changing one set of ideas for another. You're exchanging one community for another. And that's very hard to do. I was converted in England at a time where I could be a Christian and still be part of the community that I belonged to when I wasn't a Christian. It was that kind of world. It was an easy move for me. If we're going to address the LGBTQ moment, if we're going to address how it's gripping the imaginations of young people, even within the church's own ranks, if we're going to do that in a compassionate way, but an effective way, it's not enough to say that's wrong. We have to actually embody in our churches and in our communities something that is obviously better and obviously stronger.
I know a major impetus for this work was Rod Dreher. He wrote your foreword for the book.
He did.
And his call for community, and even like community as family, which seems to be how Paul conceives of it, the Apostle Paul conceives of it as well, is it seems like you guys are at least similar in the sense that the call for the orthopraxy, if you will, the actual living out and the knowing truth together in real life.
Yeah.
Because as you say, somebody leaving a community like that, which can actually be quite close knit when it comes to the LGBTQ community, coming to something like that where it's like, well, I go to a place once a week, worship God with people I don't know, and then I promise to see them next week, and that's supposed to save the world, or like give me like a sense of being known. And so it sounds like your challenge is for the church, but then the church leadership, but also the church body, where it's like, no, guys, like we can actually know this community thing together.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
I think so. I think for a long time in the United States, the broad Christian mind was gripped by the idea that getting the right Supreme Court nominees, getting the right president, getting the right laws on the statute books was going to be enough to do it. That's part of our culture, but it's not the whole culture. I remember when Obergefell versus Hodges went down, first things had asked me to do 2 pieces in advance so they could publish them straight away, publish one of them straight away. One when the verdict went in favor of gay marriage, one when it went against. So I wrote my 2 pieces, I sent it in, and the editor got back to me and he said, I've got your 2 pieces here, but I noticed there's only 1 sentence difference between the 2 of them. And I said, because I think the verdict may have some implications each way for religious freedom, but by and large, the culture's already spoken, the culture's already moved. How do you change the culture? Well, not by taking over Congress for Jesus anytime soon or ever, I don't think, in the United States. The way you're going to change the culture is by changing your local community. I can't have any impact on, or I can have very limited impact, it seems to me, on Congress. I can't even in Pennsylvania have much impact on Harrisburg, where the state capital is. But I can have an influence on the kids in my class. I can have an influence on my neighbors. I can have an influence on the people who sit next to me on the pew on a Sunday. I can give them hospitality. I can be friendly. I can care for them. I can carry their burdens for them. I can make a difference there. And I think Christianity, I'm absolutely with Rod on this. There needs to be a reorientation for numerous reasons, but as much as anything, a reorientation to the local, because the local is actually where you do have real influence.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people hear the word missions and it intimidates them, like they're the superstar Christians. And when you even say like, no, like have somebody over to your house and just spend time with them, like that's a missiology that like anybody can practice, like absolutely anybody. When it just comes to like hospitality, where it's like just love well and love by being like honest, and like honesty isn't void of compassion, like break with people, hurt with people, grieve with those who grieve and rejoice with those who rejoice. So I love your call. Yeah, I love it.